I'm coming to realize one of the many genres I don't play as much as I should are platformers, namely mascot platformers. Despite how things may look on the surface, this genre actually has a wealth of game and mascots that can provide quite a fun experience. But at the same time, they get overshadowed by the popularity of the more well-known characters, and also the fact other genres gained popularity in recent memory. So it really warms my heart when developers not only manage to make their games available for more people as time goes on, but also try to revive their mascots with a reboot, giving them a chance to try things out that were not possible back in the day due to technical limitations or time constraints, and also to have a chance to both rekindle with older fans while also bringing in new people. In the case of Kao the Kangaroo, I am on the second group, a new fan who, up until I saw Nitro Rat's video on the franchise, never even knew it existed. Sadly, a casualty of being exclusive to the ill-fated Dreamcast and the early days of PC gaming. From there, I saw the newest game was on sale, so I picked it up thinking it was a remake of the original and gave it a go. Much to my surprise, this is not a remake, but rather a reboot, and a really fun one at that. Kao the Kangaroo puts us in the boxing gloves of our titular protagonist, a young little kangaroo who one day has a prophetic dream about his missing sister, and a warning that something needs to be found before some evil force finds it first. Concerned about the well-being of his sister and wanting to also find his missing father, Kao embarks on an adventure, one where he finds himself partnering with a pair of sentient boxing gloves that seem to be the key of dealing with the corruption ravaging the land and turning respected martial artists into villains.
You really are corrupted!
We do not know each other, and yet you are already insulting us? Maybe we shall get along after all.
And that's about it, really. The story is as straightforward as it gets, a fun, light-hearted Saturday morning type of adventure, and one I find quite fun at it. What amused me right off the bat is that the main method of combat in this game is punching enemies in the face. This game is seriously one combo system shy of being a full-on brawler, and it helps a lot enemies actually are pretty sturdy, requiring a good old 1-2 to finally go down. It's made better by the fact your punches actually sound like they carry weight. To complement this, there is a power meter that builds up with each successful punch, filling it up and making your punches more powerful. But if you are in the right situation, you can unload all that power with a ground pound, ideal for dealing with bigger crowds. The fun part is, punching is not limited to enemies' faces. For games like this, it is always important to let players enjoy the core mechanics of both in and outside of combat, and that's why in Kao the Kangaroo, the environment is just a goldmine of objects and props just waiting for you to arrive and punch them into dust. And this plays a big part into exploration, because more often than not, you are going to find hidden stuff that is going to be handy, both to afford you health upgrades and costumes for Kao to make him look nice, and to also find the collectibles scattered all over both the main levels and the hub levels. This takes us into the platforming and the main levels themselves. They're fun. True to any mascot platformer, there is a nice variety of environments for you to explore, and some sweet platforming to do, starting with something simple like a jungle, to being out there in the icy mountains, to even exploring the darkness of a corrupted circus. There is rarely a dull moment as you make your way through each of these places. The platforming is also complemented by some really good pacing. The game likes to ease you up to the mechanics early on, but as you make your way through the story, the levels start to grow slightly larger and they start adding a few complexities here and there. You can find yourself platforming through hazards like water or lava, to then doing some minor puzzles. Nothing too big, but enough to have you running from one side of the arena to the next. It helps a lot that the levels have a fun sense of spectacle to them. The Juice Factory and the Dark Carnival are among the levels I remember the most, from witnessing how a corrupted martial artist polluted an entire river to turn it into a factory of mind-controlling fruit juice, to walking around the corridors of a spooky haunted house attraction. It just feels nice, really. Variety always works wonders for games like this. And speaking of variety, rather than simply limit your collectibles to the levels themselves, the game gives you small challenges in the form of the Eternal Wells. At first glance, they feel like they are the usual little bonus stages where you just grab a thing and carry on with the main levels, but in reality, they're a slightly more difficult set of challenges. All of them replayable, and all of them very fun as they put your platforming and combat skills to the test. After playing through the levels multiple times thanks to a timer that encourages speedrunning and a nice set of collectibles that encourages you to go back and check every nook and cranny, you then get to the meat of the story, the bosses. One thing I'm starting to notice in these modern platformers is that they ditch the common trends of the classics, of giving you a large collection of bosses with varied levels of quality and instead giving you a smaller set of really fun bosses. Quality over quantity. From a local thug that got lucky and stumbled upon great and terrible power, to famed martial artists who fell victims to that same corruption, each battle putting everything you learn in the game to the test, and each of them revealing things that could get you closer to finding Kao's sister. I do like how these boss fights are sequential. True to the design of the classics, you have to dodge damage for a bit with increasing difficulty, before it finally becomes your turn and you get to dish out some sweet damage. And the more you progress, the more intense it gets, and the more alert you become. I love it. But as much as I would like to love everything about this game, there are elements that hurt it a bit. They didn't ruin the experience per se, but I feel they hold a rather great game from reaching its full potential. Remember how I talk about collectibles? Usually in games like this, collectibles will reward you with either extra lives, unlock secret levels, or even open up a path to get a different ending. The only collectibles that mean anything to you are the crystals you need to pay in order to unlock the entrances to both levels and bosses. Everything else is just bragging rights for the 100% completion. Getting all of them also comes with the sad side effect of said collectibles staying gone for good. Now, of course that makes sense. If you already got them, why keep them in the game world? Usually, you keep a transparent version of them if you want to do another run of collecting them. Otherwise, it makes exploration redundant in subsequent playthroughs, and in my opinion, hurts replayability a little bit. Not helped by how amazingly forgiving this game is. I'm not gonna say the game is too easy. I did take my fair share of damage, and I did die a few times, but the thing is, none of those deaths felt consequential. The game throws health and extra lives at you constantly, and falling into liquid hazard simply sets you back a checkpoint, regardless if you just took damage or died. I'm not saying every game should be Crash Bandicoot, but I do feel like sometimes a game can be a bit too forgiving, especially if there's no real penalty for losing. And no, I did not go out of my way to get a game over just to see what happens, because by the time I noticed it, I already had too many extra lives and didn't feel like just dying over and over again. And then there is a small gripe I have with the level design. Remember I mentioned speedrunning? Sometimes in games you can get around moving faster through a level by breaking some sequences or using the platforms to get out of the beaten path. This game doesn't allow that. Instead, the levels will straight up glue you into the main path. Nothing wrong with it, but I feel like this makes exploration a bit restrictive, and I actually like feeling smart by finding alternative routes. Despite those flaws, I actually had a lot of fun with this game, and I think a bigger part of it is because of how charming the characters, the world, and the story are. Like I said, the story in this game wouldn't be out of place in a Saturday morning cartoon. They made the right call to make Kao a kid. His voice even suits him as an excited but nervous kid that goes through a traditional hero's journey.
But they're the only thing I have left of that. I want to wear them.
Really? You play the sad card?
Yeah.
Little monster. Wipe those fake tears. Try the gloves on a real opponent.
I know there's been criticism on how often the humor gets a bit too referential, but I found that silliness fun enough to still have a big smile while rolling my eyes, and also feel the existential dread of Chaos Mom making the outdated memes, and realize with horror that Skyrim came out 12 years ago at the time of this recording. I'm old, and I hate it. Aside from that, I found Chaos' journey to be charming. I like how they mix boxing versus martial arts, and how the evil corrupting force that kidnapped his sister is infecting the world, and the extra layer of comedy in how the solution to the corruption is through the power of punching it in the face with your sentient magical boxing gloves. I do wish there was more banter between the two though. The boxing gloves rarely really speak. Either way, Kao the Kangaroo is a really good reboot. Even with its shortcomings, I feel it is an awesome entry point into the franchise, and I really hope it gets a sequel. And in case the entirety of this video wasn't hint enough, yeah, I do recommend playing it, especially if you are a fan of mascot platformers or you would like to get into the genre, but you don't have the means or access to the ones that are exclusives to certain systems. There is a lot of room for improvement, and I hope it doesn't go to waste, because I really want to see which places they will take Kao now that they gave him a fresh start. Because as it is right now, I am a fan. I might even try out the original games, even if they may be showing their age. Because no matter what happens, this is something I will always love about this hobby. No matter where you look, there is always alternatives. There are always gems you may have missed for one reason or another, and as long as there are the means, you can always give it a try, and who knows? There's a good chance new horizons will open up for you, and give you a grand old time.